introduction, I was going to describe myself as an economist, but not a marauding one. But maybe the introduction sounds like I am marauding, maybe more than I should be. But anyway, I'm kind of conflicted here because I'm very sympathetic to the spirit of what Bob said to you, but I'm still happy to play a bit of a devil's advocate and to fall into a role that I'm not all that comfortable in, which is to sort of defend the economic point of view or an economic perspective of things. I'm not that comfortable in it because I spend most of my time sort of unpicking its foibles and thereby, I think, generating some value for the people that I am involved with. But I do come. I mean, I come from a position of great respect for the basic economic framework, and the reason isn't because I've come to tell you that we should worry about the price of everything and the value of nothing, but because the economic framework is the only framework that I've come across that gives you a kind of a coherent picture of everything. And then it's wrong, of course, because every framework is wrong. But I will tell you since I've said that, I will tell you that I was sitting next to a very famous and now defunct Australian economist, Nugget Coombs. H.C. Coombs and Hugh Stretton, they were a very well liked and provocative left-leaning economist was launching his book, and I was sitting on the corner of a table and somebody was sitting next to me who wasn't an economist, and Nugget Coombs was sitting next to me, and I was talking to this woman across the corner. And I said, really, you don't have to worry. She said it was, economics was too hard for her to understand. And I said, well, I don't really know why. It's only got one idea in it. And Nugget Coombs leaned across and said, yes, and it's wrong. So the idea is opportunity cost. The idea is that any time you're doing anything, and it doesn't have to be an economic thing, any time you're doing anything, it has an opportunity cost. If Collingwood plays Travis Cloke at centre half forward tonight, they can't play him at full forward. And if you want to understand the theory of comparative advantage, I've just explained it to you. And so economics provides this extremely seductive. It's like a kind of, you can see why economists are born again if you read John Hewson's biography by Chris Waltz, but it's a bit of autobiography because it's a quote from him. He said, when he got hold of this economic framework, was like getting religion because everything fell into place. So I want to paint that picture for you without hope, although I hope you won't think that I think that you can sort of then walk out born again and everything, and you just do what the framework says. The framework is something which can orient you and think and allow you to think about the question: should I recycle aluminium cans, or could I do something better than that? Should I put a tax on carbon, or should I pursue direct action via Tony Abbott's proposal? So it's in that spirit that I wanted to talk to you. We've heard one set of ideas, a single idea that Bob's talk conjures up is the idea of the triple bottom line. He calls it a single bottom line, but there's a number of lines in that diagram, and it's trying to pull everything into some kind of coherent whole. But it's actually very difficult to, you have to make choices and you have to work out what means what. One of the things that Cheryl knows I bang on about on the board of Sustainability Victoria is I say that when we're doing a triple bottom line analysis, that I'd like to know how many dollars per tonne a particular thing is. Now, by my back-the-envelope calculation, recycling televisions, which is the latest policy passion, is, and it doesn't actually even reduce carbon, which is a serious externality and a serious environmental problem, may increase carbon emissions, but it reduces waste to landfill. That's an interesting dilemma. And it costs $1,000 a tonne. But that's where policy is headed. That's the next thing we're doing, is to spend $1,000 a tonne addressing 0.4 of the waste stream to get it out of landfill, and we won't actually get more than 30 or 40%, I think. So that's one way we can go. And when you look at the triple bottom line analysis, some of the sorts of things, and I'm not sure that that's true of this particular proposal, but one of the things we get in triple bottom line analysis is that this thing will create jobs. Now, I'm sorry to sound almost willfully contrarian, but we have too many jobs. We don't have the right kind of jobs, and there are jobs at the low end that we could do with more of. It's not that we don't have unemployment, but if you don't discriminate between what sort of jobs you're creating and where you're creating them, you can create as many as you like, and the Reserve Bank will destroy them for you. So we need to kind of work out the actual priorities that we have. And when I've seen triple bottom line analyses, what has happened is that environmental and social analyses, I'm never too sure what's going to go in there. Often they're sort of nice sounding things, and so much so that they even make the economic analysis seem as foggy as the other kinds of analysis, and we don't really know, well, if we had a lot of one kind of bottom line, how would we trade that off against the other kind of bottom line? So let me then, so that's a bunch of ideas to think about. Let's talk about making aluminium. We've got some aluminium to make, and we might put it in Apple laptop computers, which I'm considering buying. They're very cute little things, they are. We might put it in planes, like the one that I flew down from Gold Coast today and ended up late here, for which I'm sorry. If it had been made with slightly more lightweight material, I might have been on time, but that's not really fair, is it? That's what I call the spare car park argument, which is if only they'd left one more car park there, I'd be able to park in it right. Or we could have used the aluminium to put in cars to lower their weight, or boats to lower their weight and therefore their fuel consumption. And then we've got aluminium being produced in Norway and New Zealand, I think New Zealand, certainly in Norway, which is being produced from hydroelectricity. And we've got aluminium being produced in Portland. Now, Apple has a logo which markets itself as sustainably capitalist, certainly capitalist, probably sustainable. And the thing is that the aluminium content of the laptop is neither here nor there to Apple. So you can double or triple the price of aluminium, and they'll use aluminium if it's part of their marketing campaign. And they'll recycle it. They'll do anything you like with it. They'll recycle, or they'll certainly make all of the parts of their computer recyclable, if you like. And if you want to make that, if you want to go into Parliament and say we're going to recycle all computers, then Apple will be at your side. Planes probably always need to buy aluminium. You can double the price for the planes. And boats certainly don't need to use aluminium, and cars don't need to use aluminium. And then we're starting to get into some difficult trade-offs, aren't we? Because aluminium is very energy intensive to make. And we actually don't know what we're doing. If we say to some aluminium producer, we want you to make aluminium more sustainable. They might have to make some geothermal energy go to New Zealand or Norway. But that doesn't really solve the problem, because the aluminium that you can buy from Norway, the hydroelectricity that is making the aluminium could be making something else. So everything's tradable against everything else. And if you pursue, now I'm not speaking against businesses pursuing sustainable capitalism. What I'm saying is that won't work out as the really big killer for some of the problems that we've got. I think I'm showing you a picture of why. Because there is a way to make everyone in the world, or at least in the world that you control, the markets that you control, actually make the right decisions about what aluminium to make, how much to put in the cars to reduce the fuel consumption of the cars, and it's called the price system. So the way to solve this problem is to put a price on carbon, and then watch all those greedy little business people try to do the best they can in the new kind of environment. Now, there are a whole bunch of reasons why that's not perfect, and there's a whole bunch of reasons why that's not complete. I would, I guess generally I'd be supportive of Ross Garnaut's argument that we want a lot of money, just silly money in some ways. We want to bubble in research into sustainability. That's kind of how we do things, because you've got to make a lot of mistakes for some things to pay off. And there are things we can do with regulation, because landlords and because tenants don't face the right kind of incentives. Landlords don't face the right kinds of incentives if tenants are paying for the electricity bills. There are lots of things we can do, but they don't really cut the mustard really with the big licks of activity. So let me say a couple of other things. The question of taking externalities seriously is clearly, I think I've given you the impression, I think that's where the money is. But a lot of environmental policy talks about externalities, but doesn't then go out and try and solve the externality. It tries to make us feel better about the externality being there. So you will be concerned, or some people are concerned, that aluminium cans are not recycled as much as they should be. They're in fact one of the most recycled bits of packaging there is, and they are under any kind of regime. And in fact, in some scenarios, container deposit legislation and things like that actually depresses the level of recycling of some of the products that we should be recycling the most. But if you take externalities seriously, it's a bit like my argument about televisions. You wouldn't really try to pursue an aluminium can-led response to the grave environmental challenges that we have. If you look, and we do subsidise the production of aluminium, and if you look at the amount of aluminium production subsidy that goes into a can, it's something like zero. I mean, it's in a Productivity Commission report from some time ago. It's something like 0.4 cents per can. Now, I'm all in favour of getting rid of that, but let's try and look at the substance rather than the symbols, because human beings think in symbols and stories. That's kind of what's good about us. It also leads us astray sometimes. But that's not really going to get us there. Finally, then, I'll also say something else, which is that I think we need to take scarcity seriously. Markets are phenomenally good at dealing with scarcity. They're not perfect, but they're phenomenally good at dealing with scarcity. They're quite bad at dealing with abundance. What do I mean by that? Well, there are a lot of resources that may become scarce, and if they become scarce, markets have a pretty good way of dealing with it. The price of the commodity goes up, and everybody economises on the commodity and substitutes out the commodity, and the people who can make the commodity go and look for ways to make it more cheaply so they can make more money or find some more of that commodity or whatever. Markets work, and not at all, at abundance, by which I mean what Bob was talking about, which is externalities. show me an externality and you've shown me a market failure and you've shown me a potential economic problem which may be a catastrophic environmental problem, which it looks like carbon emissions, there's a good chance that that's what they are. And markets don't naturally respond to that. And I don't think, for all its benefits, it's great if we've got lots of super funds thinking about sustainability and trying to turn sustainability into profits. Please don't misunderstand me. I think that's really important. But if they're trying to make aluminium, I just want there to be a decent carbon tax on, and then I just want them to try and make aluminium at the lowest possible price. I don't think there's any other way of dealing with that problem. And it's not a matter of optimising something when you've got, businesses making aluminium, having to sell aluminium at 2, 3, 4 times the price against businesses that are pumping out pollution and are able to sell this aluminium that then gets lost in the production process and can't even be discriminated from the supposedly clean aluminium. We don't even know if it's clean because we don't know what's substituted, what's been substituted. It's nice and clean so it can go into the Apple portable computer, but in the meantime, something else is belching out carbon somewhere else. So, I think the real problems there. It's possible that we could, by intervening in the marketplace, come up with a better sort of curve through peak oil and stuff like that, but it's not a big deal and we could easily screw it up. But it's absolutely critical that we intervened with the hole in the ozone layer because it was externality driven. It's absolutely critical that we intervene excuse me, in the other great externality we know about. And of course there are a whole lot of other things that are not very well touched by regulation, things like remnant vegetation, biodiversity and so on, in which we just have to do the best we can with regulation, sustainable capitalism, appealing to each other's better sides, all the tricks that we can come up with. Anyway, so I better stop there. But I think I haven't completely set out for you the framework within which I'm sort of operating and then from which I'm happy to depart on various sort of ad hoc excursions to try and make things a bit better. But I think that framework is absolutely critical because otherwise we find ourselves literally lost and making highly paradoxical kinds of decisions like what we really need is to recycle 30% of our used TVs. And I don't think that's going to help us run